Okay, let's talk about Oklahoma City and why it's such a great market for residential investors. If you do not have an appreciation for this city right now, in a few minutes when I get done with this, I promise you're going to have a huge appreciation for this market. And although it's not one of those flashy markets like a Miami or an Orlando or a Phoenix or Dallas, you're going to see that it's probably for good reason. And we have an opportunity to get into this market before the institutional investors do, because for the reason that you haven't heard about it, they haven't either. It's not a very sexy, glamorous place, but I like not sexy and not glamorous because that's where the opportunity is. The Oklahoma City market, just to kind of preface this quick overview, is not one of those volatile markets that climb up, go down, climb up, go down. You're not going to see the huge discounts from peak price, which, by the way, peak price wasn't real anyway, so it's not a good contrast to begin with. But I'm going to show you why the Oklahoma City market is good from a political perspective for landlords, for the economy. We're going to talk about some of the fundamental economic drivers that make it a really good market, and we're going to talk about affordability. Affordability as it relates to growth potential on the prices on those houses there. You can dive deeper if you want. I have all these reports that I can give you from the census, from the Bureau of Labor Statistics, and so forth. Just email us and we'd be glad to get you that information. But I'm going to give you the distilled, condensed version, and I'm not going to try to be long-winded here. I want to do this as quick as possible to give you a quick overview. Any of this, by the way, you can validate on your own, and I challenge you and encourage you to do that because you're going to find that this is going to be a pretty attractive place to park your money. So a quick high-level feel for Oklahoma City is it starts with a story back in the 90s when one of the big major airlines wanted to find another hub in the United States. And of course, different cities put proposals out there because they want to attract these big airlines. And Oklahoma City put a proposal. It was one of the financially most attractive proposals, and the airline said no. And I can't remember who it was. It was either Continental or United. And they said no because who wants to live in Oklahoma City? Well, that was kind of a slap in the face for the city, and ever since then, they've been really aggressive about making it a place that people talk about. And I can tell you firsthand, being here, going downtown, seeing Bricktown, seeing the new revived areas, seeing what they've done with the stadium, they are making a concerted effort to put it on the map. Forbes magazine ranked Oklahoma City as the number 17 fastest growing cities in the United States. So we'll talk about population, we'll talk about the economy, and we'll talk about affordability, and then we're going to drill down to the submarkets in the city where we feel the best growth potential and the best cash flows are going to be. But overall, if you are not familiar with the city, it is a population of about 1.3 million, and from a population growth perspective, it's growing at about 60% more than the national average, and I'm going to talk about those stats in a second. Geographically, if you don't know where it is, it's in the middle of the country. It borders Texas to the north. Oklahoma City itself is kind of like a small Dallas. In fact, a lot of people who live in Oklahoma City, their cell phones have the Dallas area code. Oklahoma City is, politically speaking, it's one of the conservative states in the country, which means two things for us as landlords. Number one, economic growth. It's one of the easiest places to start a business, and I'll show you that in a second. It's also a very landlord-friendly state. So, of course, one of the first questions or boxes we want to check as investors or landlords is how long does it take to evict a tenant? We want that to be very fast. And in Oklahoma City, if the tenant fights you, it's going to be a maximum of 3 weeks to get them out of your house to start making money again. So that's always music to our ears as landlords, and that's the kind of the feel of Oklahoma City and the rest of the state. Entrepreneur magazine ranked Oklahoma City as one of the top 10 best cities to start a business. It's number 5 best city to start a business in the country, which is awesome. Oklahoma City sits smack in the middle of the state of Oklahoma, and it is the capital of Oklahoma. As I mentioned before, population growth, I know this table is kind of small, about 60% more than the national average. So from 2010 to 2020, it's expected to grow by another 15-16%. This is a heat map of the United States, so you can kind of see a contrast to the rest of the country. It grew by 1.5%, 1.6% in all of last year, which is one of the top growing MSAs or metro statistic areas in the whole country. Again, USA Today recognizing the growth of Oklahoma City. This is one of the most important statistics for us as landlords because we want to know that our tenants have incomes and can pay our rents. And so the unemployment rate's a very important stat, and Oklahoma City is the #1 lowest unemployment for any city with a population of over 1 million people in the whole United States. That's worth repeating twice. I'm not going to do it, but it's worth repeating twice. Very important for us landlords. I've seen the unemployment rate from 4.2 up to about 4.8. So not only are Oklahomans making good money and high incomes relative to local purchase prices, which I'll cover in a second, but the cost of living in general is lower in Oklahoma City, which makes it one of the better places for retirees to move. So we're in front of the baby boom population that controls about 75% of the wealth in the United States. That's always another box we want to check off. Housing prices are not just affordable from a absolute measure compared to the rest of the United States, but they're very affordable relative to the local incomes. And that's very important because if the mortgage payment is low compared to what that family brings home, then you have very safe price levels on housing, meaning if crisis hits, because their payments are so low, we're sheltered better than most other cities in the U.S. because they can afford a hit in the economy. But from a growth perspective, it also means that because the mortgage payments are so low, their debt to income ratio is so low, when they borrow to buy a house, they can afford a lot more house than most people in the rest of the country. Again, we talked about the implications of the low cost of living, how it drives retirees to that market. Oklahoma City, one of the top 10 most affordable cities for retirement. It was number 5, as you can see below. This is my favorite piece of information out of everything, and I actually had to come out here to validate it. And I'm seeing houses where the mortgage payments are only 13% of their take-home pay. So that's very important. Again, the affordability measure, it's an affordable market relative to their incomes, which is more important than just affordability in general. So you're going to notice that Oklahoma City, because we're playing with new construction, because there are high incomes here, because the market was sheltered from a lot of the financial crisis in 2008, you're going to see price per foot a little bit higher than other markets. But that's just evidence of the resilient economy here and the high incomes. Speaking of recession proof, this is really important to note that Forbes magazine ranked Oklahoma City as the #1 most recession-proof city in the middle of the credit crisis. And that's because of the incomes again, because of the local economy, and because of the unemployment rates at that time as well. Only about 5% of the mortgages were upside down in Oklahoma City at the height of the credit crisis. In contrast, you saw in other markets like the Phoenix, Arizonas, and a lot of the markets in Florida, Las Vegas, where you had really high default rates because you had a lot of people that were more over leveraged in those markets. In Oklahoma City, you had a very small percentage of that. We talked about incomes as part of the reason for being a resilient economy. From 2011 to 2012, Oklahoma Metro Statistic Area, the Oklahoma City MSA, was ranked number 23 of 366 MSAs across the United States in rise of income. Per capita GDP, I know this is a little bit harder, but by now I think you're probably getting used to tracking where Oklahoma City is on a map. Here it is right in the middle. It's one of the green MSAs from 2001 to 2009. That's an older stat, but you can see recently it kept up with that. And you can see in 2011, we still see that trend. Now we're going to drill into parts of the city where the incomes are higher and the schools are better and the crime rates are lower. So generally speaking, you're going to see in the north and northwest, or wrapping around the city there, is where the best incomes are. So you can see all the yellow here. This is where all the higher incomes are, and this is where we're playing. These are the markets with the higher incomes and the better school districts: Edmond, Piedmont, Yukon, and Mustang. Again, the north-northwest corridor here. And as you can see from the key on the bottom, it's only about a 15-20 minute drive to downtown Oklahoma City. So relatively speaking, the traffic isn't an issue here compared to what I've seen in other markets we've been in. It's a very easy city to get around, and all of the suburbs that we're going to be playing in have easy access to the expressways and major arteries in the city to get around. Now we're going to be focusing on the type of properties we're going to invest in. It's going to be new construction, new build homes. We're going to get the builder warranties, and it makes sense to do new construction versus resale because the resale prices are only 10 to 15,000 lower than the new construction prices are. So by the time we put our renovation costs in there, we can actually get the same price as new construction, but we get the builder warranty, a lot less maintenance exposure, and a newer property that's in front of progress in the north and northwest parts of the city. All right, we're going to be investing in entry-level homes in front of the FHA home buyers. So when we want to exit these houses in the future, after we've collected our cash flow and seen some growth, we're going to have a large universe of buyers out there because these are perfect for FHA home buyers. You have 3 bedrooms and 4 bedrooms. Most of them are 3-bedroom, 2-bath, 2-car garage. Every once in a while we'll see a 4-bedroom. And again, these are in neighborhoods that have some of the best schools and some of the highest income per capita in the area. Obviously, low crime rates as well. And for those of you that like brick construction, there's always a brick face to the house. Most of the times you at least see the front and sides brick. Sometimes the back's not brick, and occasionally we're going to see all brick houses. So if you like stone, then you're going to like the actual physical product here. So that's a general overview of the properties just to kind of get you familiar. We can get you specific property details. But let's talk about property management now. Property management being even more important than the property itself. I don't think a lot of us give that enough credit. But the property management is going to create your experience. So when we set up the property management or sought out the property management more accurately, we were looking for a company that had, number one, a very tough tenant screening process. Number 2, a lot of experience in the market. And then number 3, a communication platform so that it'd make it easy for you to see income, expenses, not have any surprises. We wanted something that you could log into online and see what was happening with your house and be able to contact somebody very quickly because all of our investors are remote investors. So we have a great agent team on the ground who can market the property for you. A lot of times these properties are getting rented before you even close on them. Occasionally you'll close on them beforehand, and that depends on where we are in the building process. But the Oklahoma City market in general only has about a 2% vacancy rate. And keep in mind that because of the recent tornadoes, we actually have 6,000 people that are still displaced from those tornadoes that are looking for housing right now. So this is a great time to get in. If you're worried about tornadoes, it's not something you need to be worried about because they're isolated geographically, and insurance companies write checks very quickly for them. State Farm's the recommended insurance agent that we're going to be offering. You can get a $1 million liability policy with them, and the catastrophic loss coverage kicks in very quickly. So they're writing checks 2 to 3 weeks to cover total loss on a lot of these houses. Okay, so here's a quick recap of just some simple bullets that I may or may not have mentioned. Prices are going to range from $130,000 to $150,000. We may have some a little bit more than that, some a little bit less than that. We do have financing here, so we have no appraisal issues in this market, which is beautiful. For those of you who have no Social Security number, U.S. Social Security number, or no credit history, minimally we can get you 50% financing at a 8.25% rate at the time of this recording with some points up front when you close. But that'll allow you essentially to buy 2 properties instead of 1 and start building credit for your entity so that you can build your portfolio later on more leverage with better terms. For those of you who have great credit, U.S. citizens with a U.S. credit history, there's 80% financing at 5.5% rate on a 30-year fixed loan. So if you can get that, that's ideal. That'll hike your cash-on-cash return to about 11 to 12, even up to 13% on your money out of pocket. We're in Class A neighborhoods again, 80% occupied or more, meaning the builder will not sell more than 10% of his properties to landlords. So we want to stay in great owner-occupied neighborhoods as opposed to rental-saturated neighborhoods. Again, high incomes in the area, low vacancy rates, top school districts, good highway access to get around the city. And as you will see, if you're ever physically here on the ground, you can see a lot of progress around these neighborhoods. A lot of commercial going up, very low vacancy rates on retail stores, which is a good sign. And so a lot of economic progress, a lot of physical building in the area. Again, close proximity to downtown. If you like brick construction, that's typically what they use in Oklahoma City. Everything comes with a 10-year structural builder warranty, and you also have other things that are covered, like the appliances on the appliance warranties inside the house. So very little maintenance exposure your first couple years into this. One thing I failed to mention about property management is there's an eviction guarantee. What that means is that if the property manager places a non-paying tenant in the house and we have to evict that tenant, the property manager absorbs the cost, the administrative and the legal cost of getting that tenant out of the property. That doesn't mean they're covering the cost of the vacancy or the new tenant placement fee thereafter, but they will cover the cost of getting them out, the administrative and the legal costs. So that's just an accountability measure to give you a little bit more peace of mind as a landlord. And with that, that concludes our overview of Oklahoma City. Hopefully you liked what you saw here. If you want more details about current availability of properties and more details about the income, the expenses, the debt assumptions, and the returns that you can potentially have here, then contact your agent and we'd be happy to get those property detailed sheets to you, and then hopefully we can get you involved. The very first step is reviewing the properties, then we get you in touch with the lender to see what you can get approved for, and then we go from there. So again, if this appeals to you at all, take the next non-committal step, contact your agent, and let's see what we can help you with. Look forward to working with you.